Hey everybody, welcome. After a little bit of technical difficulty, we are ready to roll. My name is Nick Popovich, and today we're going to be talking about email security and a little bit of a riff on it. But I figured the next slide, we should start with a little about me. I'm an offensive security researcher, hacker, been an RVAsec community member for a number of years. And so we wanted to talk about and level set on some definitions. When we talk about phishing, this is pulled straight from NIST special publication about what phishing is, but we understand that it's an email that's sent to coerce an advantageous action that would be a benefit for an attacker, right? And so the ways that those emails are, and there's also different takes on that. You've got smishing, vishing, all sorts of ishings. The whole point is that for the initial access into an organization, many times you're going to rely on social engineering and phishing. We understand that. There's a lot of us here who make good money doing it for a living, offensive security. And there's folks, defensive security, who are trying to have telemetry and monitor these types of things. So we see some common trite guidance that we give users. Is it an urgent call to action? Is first time or not a most common sender that's coming in? A generic greeting. Mismatch email domain. So if it's coming from some SaaS provider, right? Versus your maybe organizational owned domain name. And then suspicious or unexpected attachments or links. So some of the stuff pulled from the anti-phishing working group, phishers themselves register more than half of the domain names on which phishing occurs. So the old days of spoofing the domain from a mail server is really dead. That's just not going to get you anywhere. You can still try, but your emails are never going to land. And 65% of maliciously registered domain names are used for phishing within 5 days of registration. So that means you go buy a domain name, you go set it up, and you start your campaign. So professionally, I am professionally evil. And what that means is I've been a red team operator now for a number of years. I've been a pen tester. It means that I'm meant to think as an attacker to attempt to test the effectiveness or the efficacy of the defensive security controls that organizations set up in their environments. And so one of my jobs, the whole idea then being the outcome of those assessment and testing activities is to raise the security posture. So as we find findings, as we find holes, they're plugged. And so a novel thought, this is not original research, mind you, this has been around for a number of years. It's just the number of times I've talked to executives and used the techniques that I'm going to talk through right now that have been effective consistently has not changed in years. And so I wanted to raise awareness organizationally that your phishing protections and the phishing campaigns and your spam filters that you're relying on, there may be a time to relook at those. Relook at the whole paradigm that you're using. Well, not the whole paradigm, because it's iterative. It stacks on top of each other. We are protecting and looking for indicators of compromise, suspicious IP addresses, and weird things. We're training our users in certain ways. Well, what I want to do is explore the concept that there are now, it's called LOTS, living off of trusted services. So I want to be super, super, super clear. This is not a poop on these vendors session, and there are hundreds of others. This is just examples. They're not really doing anything wrong. What the talk is going to talk more through is the idea of being able to utilize these services that are provided as a value in unexpected and malicious ways. And then we're going to talk through maybe some concepts of how to protect your organizations and environments. So the idea here is these organizations provide powerful productivity and business tools to organizations, and there's a level of trust. If you get an email that's digitally signed and comes from a Microsoft email address, and you get a link in that email that goes to a Microsoft IP space to a certificate that's signed by Microsoft CA, I think most of us in here would nod and be like, that seems like a trusted thing to deal with. And I'm going to show you how you can use everything I just said maliciously to lead to attacker-controlled content. And we're going to walk through 2 examples. And again, that's just because they're the funnest and easiest and the most recent on the top of my head. Understand that there are hundreds of examples of doing this. So if we go back to our background, we talk about an urgent call, all the common guidance to identify phishing. I think over the last 30, 40, 50,000 years that we've been training users on how to avoid, recognize, and detect phishing emails. We tell them things like if it comes from outside your environment, if it's something that you don't get often. And if it's from outside of your domain and it's got a link and it tells you to do something, that's a phishing email. And then we send them 24 of those a week from all of the SaaS services in our environment. Think about the travel system, the HR system, the policy adherence to this training, that training. What does it usually do? An urgent call to action. You need to go do something. Click on this link to fill out your first time or there's so many times I get an email from some SaaS provider in my work email, and it's like, what is this? What even is this? Generic greetings. Hello. You need to log in here and accept the new acceptable use policy in something.com. Mismatched email domains. It's many times these SaaS emails are not coming from company.com, right? Your organization, it's coming from the SaaS provider email address. And it's got links or attachments in it. So we check all the boxes, and we're sending emails to our users consistently, encouraging them. Actually, not just encouraging them, demanding at times that they follow these links. So we are on one side of our mouth saying these are phishing emails, and on the other side saying just click it and do it. So as a user, you are desensitized and trained to just click on links that come in emails. Super not fair. So this is kind of a weird statement. Don't put it down and put it away. I just wanted to talk about a concept in psychology called habituation. It's the idea that there's a decrease in responsiveness upon repeated exposure to stimulus. And so just picture me, little Nikki, when I'm like 9 years old. My mom had this statement. She said, don't put it down, put it away. Clean up the clutter, clean up the mess. And she put signs all over the house. Don't put it down, put it away. She would say, don't put it down, put it away. And that worked for like one day because the signs were new. I walked into the playroom, I was like, oh yeah, don't put it down, put it away. And the next day I walk in and there's that sign, don't put it down, put it away. And there's that sign, don't put it down, put it away. So habituation is the concept. And if we rely on the security control, and I think the title of this talk, you get where I'm going, right? Many organizations that I've spoken to, it's talked about these phishing threats. Say, well, every external email we have has this banner attached to it. It says, warning, this message originated outside of the organization. Be careful with these links. And you know what? That mattered for about 1 week because habituation comes in. You get used to seeing it, and now that warning means squat. So relying on your spam filters, relying on the users seeing that banner and caring, and just a quick sidebar, there are ways to make that banner disappear. These aren't O-days or anything like that, but I will. This is a little ad hoc, but I'll just drop in. There are headers that you can add to emails from outside your organization that will take that banner away if the organization uses things like Fish Me or Know Before. Because many times if you add headers that are for Fish Me or Know Before, they want that banner to be gone so that you get more links clicked and stuff like that. So I found that out through trial and error. Your mileage may vary. Research. I'm not going to give you the exact headers. You can Google that. Anywho, and I'm not against Fish Me and Know Before, by the way. Those are cool services. They track the clicks, all that. That's fine. Do you? So real quick, I'm not going to waste your time, but for some folks, they may not be familiar with what I'll call the tried and true method for setting up a phishing engagement. The pen testers in the audience, the red teamers, this is what we do day in and day out. But we're going to talk through how it sets up and how you'd usually roll. And then I'm going to show you, I've got a couple of videos because I decided doing it live was a bad idea. I'm going to show you how to send emails that are 99% going to land in the inbox and abuse the trust of trusted services to deliver phishing emails and how attackers do. So first and foremost, we're going to acquire the domain, categorize the domain, establish the security DNS records, and we're going to email warm up, and then we are ready to send phishing. And we're going to just talk through what that looks like. So it's kind of tough to see. Well, one of the things I like to do is either you buy an expired domain. So that's got a history. And so this expireddomains.net, you can go and find expired domains and see what kind of history they would have. You can use search terms on them, find all sorts of fun stuff. And what's nice is that does the work for you many times. So an attacker may go and for $8 buy a domain that's got a great trust score, keywords they like, and already is categorized and has history in it. So that's kind of handy. So you go and you figure out, you buy a DNS name. Now for this talk, that's an example of, I don't even want to search it. That's just showing you, domains that are available with Richmond and their Alexa score. These expired yesterday. So for the sake of this, I bought pickles-cage.com just because Pickles Cage was open. Nicolas Cage was not open. So now, if you didn't go through the step before and you buy a domain that's already categorized, you need to categorize the domain. This is important for a number of reasons. One, if you're going to have your users communicate with the domain, like you need them to browse to something, many proxy services and egress filtering is not going to allow it out. If it's uncategorized, you put an IP address in there. You know, proxy, Palo Alto, all of these enterprise, they're not going to let you connect out because it is either in an uncategorized status or it's in a status that it is bad, malicious, evil. But what's neat about the trust that the internet affords humans is that you can go to all of these sites and ask them to categorize your domain and make sure it's got benign content or content, and it categorizes typically in a matter of minutes. And all of a sudden, the domain you bought is categorized. Now, I will caveat that. Lately, time is the deal. So if you buy a domain, it's going to be in this new category for like 30 to 60 days. So what a lot of attackers do and red teamers do and threat actors will do is buy domains en masse. Buy good, generic, spicy domains, sit on them, categorize them, let them sit, redirect to a blog, put some benign content on there, get it categorized as IT and technology, blog, personal finance, whatever. As long as it fits a category, and these are the sites you can go to for like Blue Coat, Palo Alto, SonicWall, all these, and you can just say, please categorize my domain. I actually only use a couple. Once you get categorized in one or two, it trickles down. They kind of trust each other, and you get yourself your C2 and your phishing domain categorized. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So here's an example of testing the site of RVAsec. So it's a blog, and it's a low risk. So this is checking the category. As long as you check the category and you look benign, you're good to go. This is another check. So this is technology internet. Blue Coat thinks that RVAsec.com is technology internet. So when somebody on an organization goes to this website, it's going to the egress filter is going to see the traffic, say this is categorized technology internet. It's not malicious. It's not bad. It's not unknown. We'll let it out. So this is an example of putting in a request of the domain that I just bought, Pickle's Cage. So Pickle's Cage was categorized, or I put in a request. I can't read that. So it categorized Pickle's Cage as entertainment and arts, because all I did was I bought the DNS record, and I put a redirect to Nicolas's Cage IMDb entry. And then I put in submit request, and it came in and categorized it as entertainment and arts. So now my domain is categorized. I'm ready to use it. Ironically enough, I don't know, I must have been doing so much sketchy stuff that I was trying to get another screenshot. And if you check the categorization of this now, it says suspicious. But I did a lot of funky stuff with this in between me getting it categorized and not. So, and that's actually, remember that. All the work that I'm doing, this is, now I got to go in and establish DNS records. So I set up the mail exchange records. I like to set up and use G Suite and Google, but whatever. You're using O365, using G Suite, whatever you're using as an SMTP relay service, you go set up your mail exchange records. And so in this case, we look at my MX records for Pickle's Cage. I'm using Google to send and receive email. Also, it needs to look not suspicious. If you just have a domain name that has no records associated with it, that's super sus. All this work that I'm doing, though, at any point in time, if it starts getting categorized as malicious, it's hosed. And now I got to start all over again. And so I thought there had to be a better way. But before we get there, we're going to go through all of these steps. Just remember the fact that at any point, if this DNS record gets burned, I can't use it as a phishing, and attackers can't use it as a phishing domain. So now I'm setting up SPF, Sender Policy Framework records. Email security dictates that basically there's a text record of DNS type that when it's queried, it says, this record specifically says what mail servers, what domains, what IP addresses, and what friendly domains are allowed to send email on behalf of your organization. So if you don't have SPF records set up, remember in the beginning of the talk when I said spoofing an email domain will never work. I caveat that. If you don't have SPF up, it will. That means SPF records prevent me from going up, spinning up a DigitalOcean instance, installing a mail server, saying that it's authoritative for RVAsec.com, and just going and sending email as RVAsec.com. If they didn't have SPF records, I could do that, and it wouldn't be flagged as fraudulent. But almost universally, organizations have sender policy frameworks set up, and you can look, this is the, Google help you on how to set up the string. We're not going to go in depth on it. There's a specific string you set up. It's a text record in DNS. You set this string. It says these IPs are allowed to send. So down there, I don't have a, no, I'm just kidding. I don't have a laser pointer. But that last line is saying SPF includes, so I'm just saying all Google email servers have permission to send for picklesscage.net. Now we have to set up the domain keys identified mail record. Again, it's another DNS security mechanism. What it does is the email service that you set up a specific record that says there's a private key on the email server and a public key set up in a text record. And every time it sends, it checks using the public key to see if it was signed by the private key by the server that you've said in SPF it's allowed to send from. So it's digitally signed by a server. So it's added, DKIM needs to make sure, you need DMARC and DKIM set up to validate SPF. So in Google, you just go in, you say, register a DKIM record, put the representative text record up, and you're good to go. So there's my DKIM record. Cool, I've got DKIM set up. And so now we look for pickleistcage.com. If you look at the origin in Gmail, we can see that I pass with SPF. I'm sending from the right kind of email address. I pass DKIM. Neat. Now the last step is setting up DMARC. Basically, what DMARC is a policy. It's another DNS record. The idea being, if you own an organization's DNS and you have permission to set up all the DNS records, you've got keys to the kingdom for all their email. The point being is you set up a policy that says if DKIM fails and SPF fails, or we have an email coming in that doesn't work out and it seems wrong, we don't trust the source from it, what to do with it. You quarantine it, send it away, deny it, etc. So we set up a DMARC record. All of this stuff to say, I bought this domain that day and I set this all up in about an hour. I could have done it all, have all this automation and whiz-bang, run some PowerShell or run some scripts to get it done in 15 minutes. So attackers can do that. Threat actors can do that. Red teamers do that. All we do is establish a domain that we think is spicy. We think it's going to trick somebody. We think it's going to have a good trust in it. We set up the appropriate records. And now there is nothing wrong with this domain other than how old it is. So in about 3 weeks, there is nothing wrong with this domain. There is no reason that a spam filter will send this as spam. I have a categorization. I have all the right DNS records. And I can even, nowadays, there's email warm-up services. I actually skip this a lot because I am what the ancient Greeks call lazy. But when it depends on the type of gig I'm on. If I'm on a 3-month red team op, yeah, I'll do the email warm-up. And all that does, it's a crowd, and you can do it for free, is it sends and receives email. So there's email, that means there's DNS records being put, because some organizations will start having this telemetry where if there's never been DNS queries, or your domain is 4 days old, and it has 11 DNS queries, it's going to be like, probably suspicious. So if you're sending a bunch of emails, you've got some scripts maybe to curl your website every once in a while, get some DNS, get some email traffic, get some stuff going, that just helps add legitimacy to your website. All unsaid is done. That took me an hour, buy a domain, set up all the stuff. Now I have, and now attackers have, a domain they can send emails from. That seems like a lot of work. It's actually not that much. But at any point in time, if that goes awry, if I start going to spam filters, if I send an email and it goes to spam, or if that site gets categorized as malicious, I got to do it all over again. I got to go find new domains and keep cycling. It's kind of annoying. And also, if you set your sweet pretext up, you sat there, brushing your teeth like I do and thinking about, all right, how am I going to trick people today? How am I going to trick people to click on my messages, click on my spicy links? And you've got this sweet story you've concocted in your head of like, oh, you come up with it, you got your narrative. Maybe you even started building a website, like a landing page with graphics, and you did the CSS, and then it gets burned. You're like, son of a gun, I got to go do all that again. So this website is bananas. It's the Living Off Trusted Sites project. There's this Twitter handle of Mr. Docs, and he has this list. I haven't counted it. I should have, because that would have been a cool stat to put up there. There is 3 or 4 dozen sites. And he categorized, well, let's go live. Let's look at it. Yeah, we good. So let's go to this site. I don't have internet, so never mind. And I'm not going to connect with the wireless. If you go there, it lists the site that says, the site. Maybe it says Microsoft. Maybe it says Confluence. Maybe it says whatever. And it says it can be used for phishing, command and control. So C2 and command and control is the idea of a malicious actor having the ability to command and control your endpoint. So as an attacker, I want C2 and I want phishing. And this site lists all of these. This is basically what this talk is based off of. And what's absolutely bananas is I've been pen testing since, I don't know, whenever Chris hired me, back in the day. And I've been red teaming for about 3 years. The number of sites that are on here that just pass through and drop right in and it just constantly works is mind-blowing and bananas. So now, we're going to show you how you can, rather than set up all of the stuff that I just talked about setting up, you can far more easily just send an email from Microsoft. Just send an email from Atlassian and fully control it. It's fully shenaniganized. And then what I'd like to do with the last few minutes is have a little bit of an open dialogue. So as I was talking about this with folks, either in engagements or conversationally, we were trying to talk about, so how would you fix this? And again, this is not saying that the onus is on Microsoft or the onus is on Jira. The onus is on organizations to figure out what you're going to do for your organization to solve this. And I don't have many good answers. I have a couple ideas. But it would be interesting for you folks to chew on, and at the end of the talk, I would like to hear maybe if you've got some thoughts, like what would you do to stop what I'm about to show you? Because 60% of the time, this works 100% of the time. I don't know why I keep coming over here and pushing the button. I have a clicker. So the first thing we're going to talk through is not that. Sorry. Beep, 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 beep. I don't know how those slides, that slide's got out of order. That's okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to walk through a bunch of slides talking about how to send email maliciously using Jira. If you haven't heard of Jira, neat. A lot of places use Jira. A lot of places use Jira for all sorts of reasons, for development, DevOps, ticketing, all that good stuff, blah, blah, blah. We all know Jira. Cool thing is you can get a free instance of Confluence and Jira by just saying, I want one. So, and then don't worry, it's not going to be death by PowerPoint. I have actually a couple live videos of doing the next one, so you don't have to just keep looking at slides. But the idea is you just, oh, I'm not doing the presentation. That's why my clicky-clack's not working. So, we sign up. Free. Email address. Don't have to put a credit card in, nothing. So I created a project called Gone Phishing. I created a board with an issue. And I said, hacks or flex. And so in that issue, I added, the description has an evil link, has evil discussions thing. I added a web link to a video, or that could be a web link to a phishing link. I've added links to this Jira board, okay? And now I go in, and I go to add a user. Now, interestingly enough, I spent far too long on this, and this is weird, and yeah. So I don't know enough about Jira, and maybe a Jira admin can tell me if there's a difference in the pay-for version or if it's taken out, but I got this to work, and I have the proof of it somewhere, but then I couldn't get it to work again, so I'll tell you the workaround that I got. But basically what I wanted to do, and what I've done in the past many times, and I think maybe they locked it down because of this issue, is you want the ability to invite an external user to view your Jira project. And so that email invite is going to come from Jira, and you control the body of it. What's interesting is, so the first time I did this, and I've used it many times before, I could send an email to an email address. And then I noticed that there was this Java response that says send to remote email false and all this stuff. I don't know if it's just for me, if it's for the world. It was controlled with JavaScript. I tried to bypass it. I eventually ended up figuring it out and sent an email to an email address outside of the Jira project, but I wasn't in burp. I couldn't capture my session, and I couldn't figure it out again. But I found a workaround. So if I want to send a phishing email, basically from Jira saying, click my link, do my stuff, what I ended up finding out was as I tried to do it, I got this disable sharing to emails true. So I changed it to false. And I was able to type an email in there, but then when I tried, it said 403 forbidden. But what's bananas is the first time I tried it, it sent an email, and I have the email that came out. But the workaround that I found was if you go in and you add them to your project, don't invite them to your board, but you invite them to your project, they don't even have to accept. Then after going in and sharing the issue, I had the ability to share that issue out. So that's a little bit of a workaround. What's also interesting, the invite to project email went to spam. But this email, asking them to come to my Jira board, went right in. So I sent this to the king at picklerscage, or I sent this to king at picklerscage.com. And basically here what I want to show you is this email has a link in it. And it turned into a link. And if we look, it passes all the checks. It's coming from my Atlassian project, from pipefishtalk.atlassian.net. Oh, I sent that to my Gmail then, we see. It passes SPF, passes DKIM, passes DMARC. There's no reason this shouldn't go to spam. Or there's no reason this goes to spam. And it didn't. So we go back, we have this email sent from Atlassian to the user. So there's one place where they might be able to be coerced. If you have, now this is, me being smarmy with a one-liner, but if you have a long text or your pretext is there, or you're really good at social engineering, you could get them, hypothetically, to click on the link right there. You just sent them an email, a phishing link from Jira. However, you see that big fat blue button, View Issue? You can also, in a paid version of Jira, open your issues up to be anonymous so that you don't have to have a Jira account to log in. So, this is the email I was telling you that went to spam when I tried to send them to join. So that's interesting. And sending from Jira may be off of my list now because I got to send them 2 emails, and I can't roll the dice on getting burned. Maybe one email goes to spam, one doesn't. Maybe both don't, they get confused. Multiple emails causes trouble, just to prove a point. But just imagine as a user who's confused, what you put in, you got to go into this Jira board to accept your training or do whatever. All of a sudden the board is open. They log in, and they've got a description with all free text. You can add in information and say, go here and do the thing. Then you got a link, click on links. Users just got to click on links. Got to click on the links. So that is just an example, a little bit of a kludgy walk-through example of using Jira. But do you get the idea? You get the concept? If I can control the body of an email, and I can send on behalf of that email, that was signed, sealed, and delivered by Jira, just for me, the attacker. Now let's get into something a little bit more spicy. This is one of my favorite ones to do. I got to stop saying spicy. That's like the 9th time I said that. And bananas. Somebody keep tally of how many times I say bananas and spicy. No, don't do that. It'll bum me out. So now let's get to one that's a little bit more impactful. So within Azure, we're going to talk about 2 different ways to abuse Azure. Then we're going to have a free moment to talk about how you would fix these types of things, and then we'll call it a day. We have this concept within Azure is API management. So I've gone in. I might make the video bigger. So I'm not going to do it from here. I'm going to make it like super big. So hold on. Let me go. Oh, I'm still doing the show. Let me end the show. End the show. And open up this guy. And go full screen. All right. Man, it's going fast. I feel like it's going faster than it was in the thing. So, is there a way to play this slower? Basically, what happens is in Azure, you can set up a free account. Set up your free account or associate it to a pay account. You went and Googled and got your, as a red teamer, you're going to use your company's a card, but as a threat actor, you're going to use some poor hapless victims information. But you sign up for an Azure project. And there's this idea of API management. So within API management, the play button. Oh, here we go. So within API management, I've created an API management project. Within the API management project, you have the ability to invite users to your project. So there's all sorts of cool functionality here, right? If I go and look at templates, these are all the types of notification templates that you can send to users. And here's the invite user template. Now you have complete control of this. You have complete control over the subject line. You have complete control over the body and text. And you have the sweet ability to have all this HTML. And you can make this email look like whatever you want. So then, based on how I've named this and what settings I've set up, I can simply go down to users and invite someone. And you can also do this in bulk, mind you. I can invite someone to my project. Now that sent an email to king at pickles-cage.com. And if we go and look in the email, we have gotten an email. And yes, that's smarmy, but think you could control the entire body of this email. All the HTML, all the links. I click the link, and you've gotten wrecked. I just went to HackerTyper to prove a point. Now let's look at the origin of this. This is an email sent from mail.azurewebsites.net. It passes all the checks. You have total control of the from. I made it simple syrup. It was no reply. That is coming from, if you read into the headers, that's coming from Microsoft servers, signed by Microsoft. That is a legit email. And I'm just showing you here now how within the template settings you can go in and change the from and how you want that to display. So that's harrowing to me, because as an incident responder, if I see an email coming from Microsoft, signed by Microsoft, seems to be Microsoft, what am I going to do? Now, as an added bonus, I'm going to show you one of the many features of Azure Functions that I like to now show you how I can control an IP address that has a certificate digitally signed by Microsoft, is on IP space owned by Microsoft, and can be used for C2. So, let's hop over to the next video. Join me. Join me on this journey. So same idea. Instead of an API management project, I've created a function app. So think about and I don't know, you might correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I think of it is like being able to run code as a service, like infrastructure as like AWS Lambda, that type of stuff. I'm sure there's more into it than that, but when I look at stuff, I look at how can I get the easiest way to abuse it. And so within the function app that I created, RVAsec Pipefish is its name, there's functionality in the older version called proxy. And so what I could do, think about redirectors. Actually, don't think about redirectors. Think about redirectors when I tell you on the next slide, because I have a sweet diagram that will help it. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm creating a rule that says if you come to this endpoint, which I'll show you in a moment, I want you to redirect all traffic to this other endpoint. The idea being it's simply acting as a proxy. All HTTP traffic that hits this endpoint that I'm about to show you is going to be rerouted. So those of us who are familiar with the beautiful tool Cobalt Strike and the concept of redirectors and why you'd want to set up redirectors, we'll dig into that in just a moment. But what I've done here is I want you to go to a little website called whatsmyip.com. That's a little website I use. It's goofy. It just shows you external IP address. So now I'm going to save this project. I'm going to pause the video for just a moment after it saves. All right, actually, no, right here. So the proxy URL is given to me right there. I have this proxy URL, and it's the name of my project. So I named my project RVAsec Pipefish. So the name of your project, .azurewebsites.net. So that endpoint is running on Microsoft IP space. I'll demonstrate that in a moment. That endpoint has it has a certificate on it for SSL traffic, signed by Microsoft CA. And all HTTP traffic that hits that endpoint is going to be rerouted directly to the server that I control. And we'll go over that for a moment. Now we're going to demonstrate the kind of the proof in the pudding. So now, so I'm going to browse to what's my IP, just vanilla. When you browse to that, you're just seeing your IP address of where you're coming from, right? What's my IP? So now let's browse to rvasecpipefish.azurewebsites.net. It's proxying all HTTP traffic that's going to that endpoint. And if you look at the cert, I hope I looked at the cert. I feel like I looked at the cert. I'll have a slide looking at the cert. Nice. Now let's go to that slide. We'll go to that slide in a second. Now we're going to talk about just a visual of the idea, especially from an attacker's perspective. If I'm a threat actor and I'm trying to be able to hide my infrastructure, if the blue team is only seeing attack activity going to AzureWebsites.net website, they have no insight into where it's going behind it. So if you get burned, you tear down your redirector, and you spit up another one. And all your infrastructure back here, all your hacks and cracks can stay. It also confuses the origin of attack, right? So that's the concept of a redirector. So now, if I'm using an Azure Functions proxy to redirect all my traffic, and the blue team is trying to figure out where's this attack going, it's going to end up, as far as they're concerned, ending at Microsoft. And then they're going to have to go and involve Microsoft, and there's going to be legal stuff. And it's all about layering. It's all about layers. Ogres have layers. So just as an example, when I checked this site out, that was azurewebsites.net, signed by a Microsoft certificate. And we take a look at the IP address that it showed. That's a Microsoft-owned IP. Okay? So now we're at the point in this discussion where I kind of want to have a little bit of an open forum. And I want to talk about ways that, because when I talk to people about this, they say, okay, you've demonstrated a problem. And there are so many other, so many other. AWS, I think every cloud provider, think about HireRight, think about all the different places where you need to be able to send an email from the service as an admin of the service. The list goes on and on. And I'm not anti-SaaS. Don't say I'm this Luddite, anti-cloud dude who's like, nah. But here's a couple thoughts I had when people were like, okay, you've demonstrated a risk. What's the remediation? My first thought is a lot of these SaaS services have a means to go in and demonstrate ownership of DNS records and send on behalf. You'd have to edit some SPF records. You'd have to go in and change some DNS. And I get it. That's a heavy lift for every SaaS service. But I feel like some of the onboarding process should be, if you're sending an email from Concur or HireRight or ServiceNow or this or Mike, all of these had an option that I researched to be able to send email on behalf of that other domain. Now that's a part of, you need to do a risk assessment on how much are you giving them rights to send that, and do you have that trust level. But I think we're being disingenuous, frankly, and treating our users poorly by being like, let's send you a bunch of these emails not from company.com. So that's one thought that I have. I don't know if it's feasible or not. One thing that I've thought of for a long time is encouraging, it's more of a procedural thing. It's like encourage the use of a company portal rather than sending all these random links saying that there's a company portal either accessible by your agent, or because I know the perimeter's gone now, right? We got this zero trust model, so you can't say they're going to be inside on the VPN. Maybe you can still. If you still have a perimeter at your organization, bully. But having some sort of very well-known company portal landing page, people know that they go here for company happenings, news, and if you have announcements, you go to the HR site, you go to the training site, you go to the place you need to go via announcements on the company portal. So internal emails or emails encouraging people to log into the platform from the company portal. That's a thought I have. And then maybe another procedural thing is just straight up preparing users for these emails. The number of emails that I get from random SaaS stuff that is legit and my company says, no, that's not phishing, is too dang high. But if I got an email coming in from a company email that was like, by the way, this week, be on the lookout for your Concur training, for your whatever, for this, for that, for the other. At least I'm a little bit more prepared. But that's really the thrust of my talk is done, and I kind of want to put it to you. And if it goes crickets, that's fine. We'll get Chris to come up and chat for a moment about next steps. But I would be curious, after seeing abusing SaaS to send emails on behalf of trusted sites, what thoughts organizationally you have on how you think you could protect your users. If you got something and you could speak with a command voice, bring it up. And you don't have crippling performance anxiety or like I do. The idea of standing up randomly from that seat in a conference and speaking is a nightmare. But yeah, I'd like to hear it. Content analysis. Interesting. And you asked if there's progress on it. I don't know. I hope so. Any other thoughts on what you can do? So content analysis, that's interesting. Using heuristics, using OCR, using anomaly detection. Content analysis of those emails. What you got? Safe links is cool. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so because I eat safe links enabled stuff for breakfast. I mean, I don't think so because safe links, like one of the things that attackers will do that I typically do, I think it's a good added control because it's definitely something that you have to think through. But like safe link scans, usually it'll send a quick couple requests to the site. And so what I do on my phishing infrastructure is I set up some sites and I get the safe links IP blocks and I just block them or I redirect them to benign stuff. So when safe links and FireEye stuff and all those defensive things scan me, they get redirected to benign stuff, but only legit users get me. So, but I think you're not wrong in the defense in-depth strategy because if I don't have it or if SafeLinks has a new source IP it's coming from and it gets me, I've been gotten by SafeLinks, so I had to adjust my tactics. So defense in depth, Adding layers, content analysis. What other thoughts for organizations? What you got? That's fair. Might not be feasible, yeah. No, this. I mean, that's why I'm actually kind of in an odd way not being like, thanks for coming to my TED Talk, I'm out. I didn't have good remediations. When people are like, so what do we do about this? I was like, I'm going to crowdsource think this and get my RVAsec thought leader friends to speak. So what else you got?
I would suggest just anything that you know you don't use. Like, so we don't use Jira. Blacklist Jira. So a bunch of bad luck, right?
Blacklist approach. That's.
It will prevent you from getting in, just make the job a little hard. I want to frustrate, as a defender, I want to frustrate you, the attacker.
I like it. Blacklist. If you don't expect it, nuke it.
Yeah, so can we put like controls in place? So if there's any kind of external email, we look at the links that are in the email itself, and then say, hey, this does not match me.
Yeah, so that's interesting. It's kind of like SafeLinks++. There's talking about the evolution. I think that there's probably some products and stuff that will do that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I don't cook the defenses. I only eat them. Well, I think, we got some stuff over here. What you got? We'll start with you. We'll work with you. Go for it.
From the SaaS solution side, on an extra, like if you think about it, you talked about all internal tools. Let's say you're in HR and you're like working to get new hires in. You send like DocuSend shit and just destroy everybody. How liable are you then if all your company branding is on there, even though you didn't send it? Secondly,
That's a good question.
the liability things that you're saying is SaaS sends emails, reward domain. My thought there is you have to be violating a EULA at some point, right?
Oh, yeah, but threat actors. Yeah, well, threat actors don't care. That's for sure. And that's a good point. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the legal.
But at the same point, if you're
Say again? Oh, yeah. So he's talking about liability. There's liability and end user license agreement, not using it nefariously, right? And that's a good point. There's procedural controls in it. And then the liability of how liable are you because your branding is all using it. And by the way, DocuSign is definitely usable for this.
yeah,
For sure. I don't know. Those are good questions. And that gets into the legal procedural stuff. I don't know, man. But that's a good point. Like relying on, that will defend you from pen testers and legal folks, but not from threat actors. What you got?
So I think this is an extension of like the blacklisting idea. So like if you're sending something from Microsoft, like most organizations probably use Microsoft to some extent, so you can't just straight up blacklist Microsoft. But to do like your demos, you have to sign up for an account or sign up for a TIN or whatever. So as part of that, Microsoft maybe should add some kind of identifier to like the originating tenant, and then you can blacklist everything or whitelist the particular.
That would be dope. That would be dope. I think anything that's going to get in the way of people spending money to SaaS services is going to be a barrier. But putting the onus on the providers maybe to make it so that there's identity verification before they, like, why are they doing all this stuff that I can do it for free? Like, I did everything that I did there, I did for free. What you got? Domain age is a pain in the butt to deal with. But the way around that is just buy 50 domains and sit on them for a year. Age them like, and I do. I have so many domains. And they are aged like a fine wine and a fine cheese. Now, to your point, though, the domain age checker, here's where it gets funky. Sometimes it's like, do they check the subdomain? So like AzureWebsites.net, that's existed for a while. But Pipefish Talk hasn't. But some of those domain age checkers, but then again, it's defense in depth. I'm not against it, but I could also spin that up and wait 6 months and then use it. So all good stuff. I think at this point, I'd love to hear continued discussion on it. But now I'm going to leave you with this, and I'm going to ask Chris to come up here. Organizationally, now you've been exposed. The burden of knowledge is yours. It's not mine. Think about for your organization, what kind of things can you do to prevent SaaS services from being abused? You have a risk model now that you need to update and think through and be like, it's not just phishing emails from random.com. It's phishing emails from Jira and from Atlassian. That's the same thing. From Microsoft, from DocuSign. Do you know how many times I've set a fake thing for people to sign with malware in it through DocuSign? Not that many times, but a couple times. Tried. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for coming to my talk. Chris is coming up to say wordy words.